to the OMFL Jacksonville Jaguars review. I'm your host, Mike Fleury, and this is the final edition of the Jacksonville Jaguars review. One, because we're at the end of the season, and I won't do one until the off season to recap / look forward to the next one, so that'll be episode 1 of season 3. And two, because this will become the Atlanta Falcons review. I made a trade with Big Hurt and Nicesonger. Nicesonger's going to take over the Jaguars. Big Hurt's taking Minnie, and I get to take my Atlanta Falcons. So next edition, after this one, we will go over everything that needs to be done in the off season, the free agents or pending free agents we have. Right now, they are set to have the number 1 overall draft pick. We are already in talks of trading that. We have to find out some rules, figure out some stuff, but none of that can be done until the off season. I'm just looking a little bit ahead, but we are going to worry about that in next episode. This episode, we are going over the Week 18 playoff scenarios. So let's just jump into it. All right. To go through all of this is going to take a little bit of time. There's a lot that can still happen. There are still 7 teams that can make the wild card. And there is still a lot of positional maneuverability between teams. So we're going to go slowly. We're going to try to explain everything. And hopefully at the end of this video, everything makes sense and I won't have missed anything. I apologize if I do. Let's start with the easy stuff. Miami has clinched a playoff spot. They can finish no lower than the 3rd wildcard spot. Jacksonville and Cincinnati can both clinch playoff spots with wins. Cincinnati can still technically win their division. We cannot. If all 3 of us tie, the way the tiebreakers work is it goes head-to-head matchup, then conference record. So if 2 teams are in a tiebreaker scenario and they've played each other, the winner of that game wins the tiebreaker. If they haven't, it moves to conference. In a scenario of multiple teams, head-to-head is still first, but you have to have beaten every team in that head-to-head matchup. If you have not, it skips to the next one. Miami has lost to Cincinnati, but has not played us. So what would happen is it would skip to conference record, whereby we would take the number 1 wildcard spot if we all finished 11-6. Then it would restart the tiebreaker scenario with Miami versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati has beaten Miami. Cincinnati finishes number 2. Miami finishes number 3. Now, if Miami wins, they clinch the number 1 wildcard spot. Done. Again, if I win, I clinch a wildcard spot. Cincinnati and Cleveland are a little more difficult. If they win, both of them clinch. But if either loses, it probably becomes a tiebreaker scenario. Now, for the rest of this video, we are going to assume that the Jacksonville Jaguars lose their Week 18 matchup against the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee has a 1.5 game lead over Buffalo, who is playing right now. If Buffalo loses, Tennessee is more likely to rest their starters. But if Buffalo wins, Tennessee needs to win. Still probably needs to win anyways, to take the number 1 seed. So, let's assume for the sake of this video, Buffalo wins tonight. Buffalo wins in Week 18 against Denver. Tennessee has to play us at full strength. And again, for the purpose of this video, let's assume that Tennessee wins. So, we finished 10-7. Now, all of those tiebreakers that I was talking about, we win every single one of them except one. we do not win a tiebreaker head-to-head against Vegas. Vegas has the only win against us of the teams we have played. We beat Cleveland, we beat Kansas City. We have not played New England or Cincinnati or Miami, but we're not going to count Miami involved in this for the time being. If we get matched up head-to-head against Vegas, we will be eliminated. For that to happen, this is what has to happen. Cleveland beats Green Bay. Cincinnati, who plays New England, wins. They both finish at 11-6. Cleveland wins the division. Cincinnati finishes in the number 2 wildcard spot. Kansas City, who plays Philadelphia, wins, finishing 10-7, winning their division. And Vegas, who plays Baltimore, wins, finishing 10-7. So, Kansas City, because they've won the division, they're not in the tiebreaker. Vegas and Jacksonville are the lone 2 teams in the final tiebreaker for the 3rd wildcard spot. That is the only path in which we get eliminated. If, for instance, Cincinnati loses to New England, the best Vegas can do is get into a tiebreaker scenario against all 4 of us, and in which case they do not have the head-to-head advantage anymore because they've only beaten me. They didn't play the other 2. So head-to-head goes away. Conference record becomes the elimination factor. I have the best conference record of all the teams. I have 8 wins. No other team can get me there, which would mean Jacksonville would take the number 2 wildcard seed. So any scenario whereby every team still alive except for New England and us win, we will make the playoffs. In that one specific scenario, that can be undone with a Cleveland loss, a Cincinnati loss, a Kansas City loss. All of that is the only scenario whereby we do not finish as a wildcard team. So this brings up an interesting question of whether or not I should just rest all of my starters to assume that one of these teams is going to lose. The beauty is Tennessee and I are both in a situation where it's better for us to wait just a little longer to play our game to see where the tiebreaker scenarios fall out so that we can decide if we need to play our starters or not. I am leaning towards not, but it will really depend on how the tiebreakers form out. As I said, it only takes one loss from Cleveland, Cincinnati, Kansas City, or Vegas. So you can see where this gets a little clusterfucky. And none of that even begins to touch on the possibility of the Raiders, Cincinnati, and New England tying at 10-7, having identical 6-6 conference records, which I believe pushes it to the best record in common games, minimum 4, which I'm not entirely sure they'll have because they are all in different divisions, which could then push it to, I think, strength of victory or strength of schedule. It gets very convoluted the further down the rabbit hole you go. The long and short of it is, if we win, we're in, and if any team in Cleveland, Cincinnati, or Kansas City lose, we're in. That's really all there is to it as far as the Jacksonville Jaguars are concerned. So, hopefully all of that makes sense. I'm going to have to go through and edit it because I did multiple takes in one video, one recording. So I'm going to have to go over that and try to cut it down and make it make sense. Anyways, that's the end of the show. This is as I said, this is the final Jaguars review. I will be back with a new title screen, a new team, a whole new off-season plan. Gonna have to really look into that and work that out. That will be next video, I guess. I will probably make it after the Jaguars are eliminated, one way or the other, because once we're eliminated, that is when we will be allowed to switch the teams officially. So that is probably when I will get in and start looking at the team. Gonna have to start looking at if I keep Penix or not. He's like a 79 overall, but he's normal development and 26 years old next season. He did not develop as well as Hurt would have probably wanted him to be. I don't know what happened. I don't know what his beginning dev trait was. So if he was normal from the get-go, I mean, or star even, it's he probably started at 72-ish overall. Hurt really never had a chance to develop this kid. We're gonna have to get into that. I've got what is looking like the number 1 overall pick. That's probably going to be on the block. I got to see rules about trading with Jacksonville because I've got a lot of players on the team I'm comfortable with, and number 1 overall pick can buy me 2 or 3 of them. Bring them over to Atlanta. They would fit really well. Got to talk to Nysonger about that. Got to talk to Nate about that after we made the switch. Just, try to figure out what we're doing. Maybe dangle that number 1 overall pick for a QB and then move Penix to somebody or use him as a backup. I don't really know. There's a lot to go over. But I guess all that's left is to say, for the OMFL Jacksonville Jaguars review, I've been your host, Mike Fleury, and I hope I did better this time.